Thanks, Chris. Two things as we get started. I'm going to say something that might feel like a sermon, but it's just really a note for any of you who are going through something rough right now. I was thinking, even as we were praying over our children and safety of children, some of you heard about that story in Texas. Have you heard about that with these kids on summer camps and swept away? Something like 30 kids-ish swept away in floodwaters. And there's tragedy, difficulty everywhere. And it's part of life. You know, Jesus said that in the world we're going to have tribulation. But be of good cheer, I've overcome the world. And I want to say this for anybody who really, like you're in the moment right now. Something has sideswiped you or something's very confusing. It's one of those, this makes no sense moments. And I feel compelled just to give you 4 words that can be helpful. Just 4 little words that can take those, this makes no sense moments and bring us some hope. So here's the 4 words. To me, right now. At the times that you want to say, or you have to say, you don't know what else to say other than, this makes no sense. To take it a little further in the tribulation and the challenge and confusion of the moment, to add those 4 words. This makes no sense to me right now. I hope that's helpful to someone here. This morning, it might be even this week, as something makes no sense, to be able to at least remember we've gathered to look at who we know as the eternal one and the holder of all things, to be able to say, this makes no sense to me right now. Okay? So, not a sermon, but a word. We're going to get to a message or a sermon in a moment. And here's the second thing as we do that. I'm going to need 2 volunteers, not at the moment, but when I'm asked for the volunteers, I got to have somebody who's ready. And I need 2 people, and I want you to be able to count and run a tape measure. All right, like you could measure something, and then to run a scissors without harming yourself. Okay, so maybe you're commiserating with a neighbor right now and say, let's be the volunteers. This could be like the most totally awesome thing that ever happens to you today. Okay, but I'll need a volunteer in a little bit. All right, so we are going through a series called Listen In, and as Chris introduced me, my name's Tom. I live in the Madison, Wisconsin area, and I'm not a pastor. I actually work in consulting and work with organizations to get their leadership and their emotional health and their relationship working. In fact, I always say I don't work with an organization unless they have issues with relationship and communication, which sort of means I get to work in a lot of places. All right. But this series is through this teaching construct that Jesus used regularly called parables, and where there's a deeper story inside a story. And we're going to be taking a look at one today, which I think is going to be eternally relevant because it is the parable that we are calling of forgiveness forgotten. Okay, forgiveness forgotten. Because it's a story really about someone who has forgiven a lot but forgot to forgive others. Now, in order to tell us, I want to tell you a story of a buddy of mine whose name is John. And John is a few years older than me. He's really in shape. He's always been in shape. He's always been an amazing kind of a stud athlete. And to the fact that, a point that when he got a full ride scholarship for 4 years running track, et cetera, et cetera. And I got to know him pretty well. He, like us, or many of us, some maybe are still on the way, is a Christ follower. And he was telling me about his great humiliation moment in life. You probably have had one or two, right? We often say that we find humility or humility will find us. Now, in John's case, he was this high school athlete, stud athlete in Indianapolis, Indiana, right in the middle of the U.S. And John was invited to be with a group of elite high school athletes in his senior year of high school to go down to Mayor Dick Lugar's office for a celebration banquet. There were going to be around 20 athletes that were renowned in the Indianapolis area. Just curious if anyone here is from Indiana and you would even know it. All right. Now, I don't know if you know the name Dick Lugar. He was a mayor, and then later on he became a senator. And he would host a makeshift pop-up banquet for these athletes, and it was in the spring of the year. It was during the track season, and John was full of himself, he would say, but full of excitement and wonder, going down to the mayor's office. He's driving downtown. He needs to be there by a certain time. He goes into the area where this is all going to be held, and when he goes into this banquet area, and this is not that banquet, right? This is like just a picture of food, if you don't know what I'm referring to, when you're being fed by someone, which has happened much too rarely for me over the few weeks I've been here so far. And I still have opportunity. Okay. But John goes in, he's the last one there. And it's pretty evident he's got one place to sit. So if you wanted to get in and sit by the cool people or maybe closer to the mayor or however it was going to work out, but there were not name tags or name placards. It was just show up and sit down. So he comes in. And as he describes, there's all the cool athletes here, and he's got to sit next to this old guy. There's an old guy that he's got to sit next to. And, already it's not going to be any fun, because now you got this thing going on, but you're sitting next to this old guy, and this old guy keeps asking him questions. So who are you? What are you up to? What's your, And they say, hey, so what's your sport? So this is where John, he can kind of puff it up, and he says, well, I'm in track, And the guy says, well, what do you do? What do you run? He says, well, I run the 100, I run the 200, I run the 400, and I run the 4x100 relay. And I says, oh, that's impressive. How are you doing this year? John's like, I've won everything. Guys listen to him, oh, that's impressive, and blah, blah, blah. And the conversation changes, and John's doing his best to talk to other people, because what's his choice? Talk to fun people or the old guy. And they go on, and you know how it goes with the little banquet, ding, 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 and Lugar stands up and hey, thank you all for being here. Here we are to honor you. You're the elite of the elite, blah, blah, blah. And just enjoy your dinner, et cetera, et cetera. So they may have had some sort of invocation, but as John says, they got on eating, and this is where some of this conversation took place. But anyway, finally, mercifully, Dick Lugar ding, ding, dings again as the plates are being taken away and they're bringing in the dessert. And Dick says, you are among the finest athletes our city has ever known, and you deserve to be proud of yourselves, and we're singling you out and honoring you for this moment. And part of the moment is I wanted to bring a friend of mine in just to speak some words of encouragement to you. I'm going to have him stand right now and say a few words. In 1936, he won the 100-meter run in the Olympics and got a gold medal. He ran the 200 and got a gold medal. He ran the 400 and got a gold medal. He was in the 4x100 and got a gold medal. And he also received a gold medal in the long jump. Would you welcome my friend, Jesse Owens? All right. So that's what happened. And I mistakenly, Jesse Owens did not get the 400. He did not get the 400 gold medal. But my buddy John, he's like, I cannot believe He never said a thing, and I cannot believe that he just let me go, because I was really, really, really proud of myself, and now the rest of my life will be shaped by humility, right? Sometimes our humility tells our greatest stories, and it may today, when we go into this issue of forgiveness forgotten. Now, the last few weeks, and we're in a multi-week series. Next week will be my last here with you all. But we've been looking in the Gospel of Luke, very common place to find parables of Jesus. Today we're looking in the Gospel of Matthew, and we are going to talk about this issue of forgiveness and how forgiven people need to be forgivers, but it's kind of a complex thing. But keep in mind throughout this short message I'm going to bring that we have such limited information on who it was and how it was that they hurt us. We don't know the whole story. We have limited information. We don't always know who we're sitting right next to. So it causes a little bit of humility right now. I'm just inviting us to step into a place of humility, because as much as you have been forgiven, if you are a Christ follower, you know that the price that Jesus paid for your forgiveness is incalculable, and that you have been forgiven so much. Now be careful, I'm not going to guilt any one of us into some sort of compliance of forgiving others. However, I am going to say, so often in life, we do not even know the story of the person who has hurt us. We do not know what is behind it all. And some modicum of humility would be helpful as we unpack this story. So I want to look at verse 15 of Matthew chapter 18. If you have your own Bibles, find that, and you're going to see there's a matrix, there's a confluence of a story right in the middle of which Jesus is going to tell a parable. And it's all in this context of, hey, extending kindness to each other, having the ability to forgive, at least be on a forgiveness journey, but in an inviting and an invitational way rather than a compliant, forced way. So let's set it up. Man, humanity hasn't changed all that much from back then till now. I'm looking at verse 15, and here's Jesus teaching, and he says, "If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not listen, take one or two others along with you, that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses." There's a little bit more on that. There's a little more that we could unpack. But Jesus is saying, hey, guess what? Infractions will happen. Challenges will happen, even between the people who love each other most deeply. It'll happen in church life. It'll happen in family life. It'll happen at work. And he says there is a process to go through. And I just want to show you a visual tool. Big surprise. Okay, if you've been here the last few weeks, I'm often showing tools. Green is always good. Red, here we have kind of a purpley. We were trying to get the 1s, 2s, and 3s to show up. Up front, you might see those. I'm going to point them out. But green is good. Red means not so good. And this is really the snapshot of what Jesus was teaching. Somebody offends you, what do you do about it? Now, there is a process, and I want to watch this, but I want to take you through, and this is only going to take a minute. And once again, if you want a pic of this or you want me to send you a JPEG, I teach this all the time in the companies that I work with, but we're calling it go to the source. Now, the tool is not called not my problem, but it is called go to the source, and this is where Jesus says, if somebody offends you, somebody gets in your way, your responsibility is to go to them. So it says 1 here, it says 2 here, it says 3. It's describing 3 people or 3 different roles. Did you all follow the 1s, the 2s, the 3s? That's as confusing as anything is going to get. But we can become this all in a span of a few minutes. Like I could be the one that offended you, right? And then I could find out I've been offended, and then I might hear about somebody's offense. And this all happens, right? But we're going to suggest that Jesus is teaching, go to the source when somebody offends you. And I'm just going to suggest that if we share this common language, just like I've talked about other common language, like a lot of us are saying the word birds a lot these days. Okay, but it's common language to say, I need to go to the source. All right, so here's what happens. I guess I'll park myself over here for a moment. But let's say you're person number one and you got an issue with person number two. Something that they said or some way they didn't come through for you or whatever. It's just somebody is bothering you. What Jesus is going to say is your responsibility is not to go to number three right now. In fact, if you're a number three and somebody's coming to you about their business with somebody else, what you have is a choice to be a conduit and go, yep, he's always late. Yep, I know that. Yep, blab, blab, blab. You can do that. You can be a conduit, and that just creates more drama and gossip, and it never resolves a thing. But if you use the common language to say, around here, remember, we go to the source. In our family, we go to the source. Have you gone to Grandpa yet? No. Well, around here, we go to the source. Yes, there are qualifiers. What if something's not safe? What if there's abuse? That's a whole different category. I'm going to touch on that. But on balance, if someone offends, go to the source. Don't talk to anybody about it. Just go to the source. 9 times out of 10, number two is going to go, you're right. I had no clue. I didn't even know I said that. Yeah. It was a moment where I didn't get it right. And you probably, in fact, Jesus says if you work it through, you've won your brother, right? It's fist bump time, and we're going to be good. But keep in mind what this is saying. And maybe just for the benefit over here, here's what we're trying to create. If you're a number three, to say go to the source. Now, if going to the source doesn't work, I'll come along. I'll see if I can play a role. But right now, your responsibility is go to the source. And it's not called not my problem, because now if you brought it to me, now I have a responsibility to say, when do you think you'll go to the source? Is it by 2 o'clock today? Or how about if we revisit this on Wednesday morning? I want you to know I'm going to check in. And if it's not working, then let's get at it, because we cannot afford for this to become a mushroom cloud of problem. Okay. So here's just a couple other wrap-up thoughts on this. This is describing what is often called triangulation. It's not a good thing. And yet it's the devil's workshop. It happens all the time. And it's interesting, though, when you share the common language and you say, around here we go to the source. Please go to the source first. This really, really works. Works in families, works at work, it works in business. So what we're ultimately trying to do is create a culture of loyalty to absent people. Got it? Because when you're a number two, and you will be, don't you appreciate it when someone says, pfft? They might even need to say, hey, this is hard for me. I never like to ruffle feathers. However, I'm coming to the source. It's like, it works. Okay? Now, man, I haven't even gotten into the sermon yet, but I've given you 2 sermons. Isn't this like an awesome day? All right. So this is the setup, though. Jesus is talking about what do you do when somebody offends, and this is functionally what you do. And there's more extrapolations there as it would relate to church life. But right now, I'm going to ask you to listen in. That's the title of our series, because Jesus is inviting the disciples and those that are Christ followers now, following him. Listen in. I'm going to tell you a story, because we really want to get after this issue about forgiveness and forgiving other people. Okay, so now we're going to listen in, and I'm going to go to verse 21. Then Peter came up and said to him, Lord, how often will my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? As many as 7 times. Jesus said to him, I do not say to you 7 times, but 77. A little bit of background there in rabbinical teaching of that day said about 3 times is what you got. Just about 3 times you forgive somebody. And after that, well, looks like the relationship is over, or some really, really hard and difficult things are going to result. So who knows how Peter was ideating this? He's hearing the story. He's thinking how he's offended. He's thinking when he's been offended. He's also thinking about particularly, well, really, how do we go with this? You know, go to your brother, bring somebody along. He says, how often? How often do you do this? And maybe in Peter's mind, he said, well, let's double what the rabbis say, and we'll throw in an extra one for no extra charge, and we'll see what Jesus says. And he says, well, not 7, but 77. By now, you know Jesus is extrapolating, and he's not limiting it to 77. We know that whatever that number is, in some cases, in some earlier translations, it would say 70 times 7. But it's irrelevant. What's relevant is that what happens when it just keeps rolling. Okay? What do you do about that? So, no more words from Peter there. Jesus has the microphone. Others are listening in. And now Jesus gives the parable. He says, therefore, verse 23, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his servants. By the way, everybody in the story is a servant now. So you're starting to see Jesus is telling a story. What about the Father, God the Father, and, about everyone else. But wished to settle accounts, meaning he'd not been doing his bookkeeping, put off the tax work, put off whatever it is. He's looking and he's saying, well, it's about time to settle accounts. And here's what he says, verse 24. When he began to settle, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. You're going to hear 2 different descriptions of monetary descriptions. There are going to be talents and denarii, or the denarius. Okay? Owed him 10,000 talents. At this point, everybody is laughing because it's beyond absurd. It's beyond absurd how funny it is that Jesus could suggest that someone could owe that much. Okay? 60 talents was like 60 years' wages beyond. I mean, it was beyond and beyond and beyond. Now, just hold on to that because we're going to actually do some math in a little bit, and this is where I need some volunteers. You don't have to do any math, but be able to use a tape measure and a scissors. Okay. Somebody get ready. Somebody get ready to storm the stage. Okay. And since he could not pay, again, the guy could not pay that money. Of course, how could he pay that money? At that time, it was something like 4 times the gross domestic product of Palestine. Since he could not pay, his master ordered him to be sold with his wife and children and all that he had, and for payment to be made. So the servant fell on his knees, imploring him, have patience with me and I will pay you everything, which would have brought another laugh, by the way. And out of pity for him, the master of that servant released him and forgave the debt. Okay. Notice it said sold, like since he could not pay, his master ordered him to be sold with his wife and children and all. That was called debtor's prison. It's not very common across the globe. There's versions of that these days. When I got out of college, I spent a year in Central Africa, and they were still doing that. And it was a sort of thing like if somebody's son did an infraction, they would put dad in prison until the son would come back. And it was all these kind of power plays, right? Putting people in prisons until they could pay. But nobody was ever going to be able to pay this debt. Now, those of you who know your sin is forgiven, you put your faith in Jesus and trusted him to be your forgiver. I mean, that's what it means to be forgiven. Say, I trusting the Savior. Then you know you've been forgiven a lot. Incalculable, probably. Like if we asked one another, write down every sinful infraction of our lives, you could never come up with it. We forget. Our stories get clouded, and there's so much. And in this case, ordered the guy to go to debtor's prison, and everybody's laughing. Well, that ain't going to work. It doesn't matter. It's an absurd amount. And it does say in verse 27, and out of pity for him, the master of that servant released him and forgave him debt. End of story. I mean, it's kind of like, wow. What do you think of that? Wow. Well, cool. I mean, I guess it's good if it's that guy, but probably owes somebody a lot of money, and you can start to think it up. Now, Jesus has not finished the story, and this is where we're getting back to what do we do when people sin against us. All right. So here we are now in verse 28. It says, but when that same servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii. Now, this would be more like a denarii was a unit of measurement that would signal about what a worker would get for a day's wage. So it's not nothing. I mean, but it's 100 days of labor, 100 days of work. But I'm going to do a little pre-math for you. It was actually 1/600,000th of what he had just been forgiven. 1/600,000th. Now, you are not going to hear me say to dismiss as if it's nothing the infraction that has come upon you. No. There's some heavy-duty things have happened. In my life, someone very close to me was murdered. In my life, some children very close to me were molested. In my life, I've been lied about. In my life, I've been betrayed. These are not minimal dynamics. And I know we all have those things. But I want you to see there is a ratio that Jesus is giving because he wants us to remember minimally that the difference is remarkable. Okay, so this guy goes out. He found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii. And seizing him, he began to choke him, saying, pay what you owe. Pay what you owe. So the fellow servant fell down and pleaded with him, have patience with me and I'll pay you back. He refused and went and put him in prison until he should pay the debt. Okay, got it? This guy gets forgiven a ton. He walks out, he's so grateful. He sees somebody owes him something, and the only thing he can do is go after him, all right? Now, there is a message, and Jesus is going to press it home, that forgiven people are forgiving people, okay? But this guy hasn't caught it yet. Forgiven people are forgiving people. Now, forgiveness, forgiving someone is not the same as reconciling. It is not the same as trust. But it means that we are on a forgiving journey because something empathetic has happened for us. All right. So Jesus is breaking down pride here. He in a sense, he's saying, we're going to make sure, Peter and y'all, we're going to make sure that you know that there is something in what other people owe you, and there's something behind what other people owe you that you don't even know who you're sitting next to. You don't even know the depth of their story. Now, where am I going with this? Just a comment, and I'll talk about this next week, but some of you know that I happen to be a co-board president of something in Wisconsin called the Wisconsin Inmate Education Association. And we provide a degree for college-educated long-term inmates inside the prison system where they can get a degree in Bible and counseling. But it's mostly for long-termers because when they get their degree, their college degree, they're going to be sent around to other prisons. Now, I would have never said this 10 years ago, but I have to tell you, on my empathy journey, I mean, when I used to hear people say, some of these people, they're in prison because they really had no other choice. They didn't even have any other choices in their life. I used to be really skeptical of that. And I am not skeptical of that anymore. To be sure, there is a panorama of people behind bars. There are some people, honest to goodness, they've done some horrible things, and they knew no other way to behave in that moment. Okay. And it breaks my heart, but there's also really amazing stories of redemption. And I'm going to talk about that actually next week. All right. So I need my volunteers. Where are you? Who's coming up? I need 2 people. The longer you stay, do I have 1? Did I say? Okay, you 2 fellas, can you do this? Do you know each other at all? All right. Is that a no? Come on up, boys. No, come on up. I'm going to explain what to do. And if you get stuck, we're going to have another volunteer right up front here jump in if we need you. Okay? But here's what I need you to do. I want you to unroll this to the point that it's at least 600, but I want 601 centimeters. You follow me? Okay, so you can figure that out on the side. Okay, what's your name?
Eliseo.
What's your name?
Eliseo.
Eliseo. I like you, and I like your Buc-ee's t-shirt. And what's your name? Liam, I like you. My name's Tom. So just want you to do whatever you need. If you can do it up on the stage here behind me, please do it. But I want you to use this and measure 601 centimeters, okay? If you get stuck, what's your name, sir? Reuben. Mr. Reuben's going to come and help you, okay? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
All right. That's the 600 centimeters. And then when you get, but I want you to go 601. Okay, that's not a bad idea. Now, you might have to do it from one side to the other to actually get there. But you guys figure it out. You guys can do it. And then one of you, when you get to 601, then I just want you to cut it. Okay? So, do it. I'm sure you can handle it. All right. And if you get stuck, just wave Mr. Rubin over, and he'll get you the rest of the way. There you go. You're on it, dudes. You are totally on it. Okay, so we're back to the story. Remember, the one guy forgiven a lot. He goes out and he chokes out some stuff from another guy, puts him in prison. And I said the story is all about servants. So, what do you think the rest of the servants are doing right now as they're watching what's happening? Well, you already know, and it's so human, but look at verse 31. When his fellow servants saw what had taken place, they were greatly distressed, and they went and reported to their master all that had taken place. Greatly distressed. Like, what the? This is ridiculous. All right. You guys are doing it, man. Get us to 601 centimeters, and you're going to be the heroes of today. Oh, and don't forget, we got the scissors. Then his master summoned him, meaning the first character. You wicked servant, he said, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. And should you not have had mercy on your fellow servants as I have had mercy on you? And in anger, his master delivered him to the jailers until he should pay all his debt. So also my heavenly Father will do to you. I'm so sorry. So also my heavenly Father will do to every one of you if you do not forgive your brother from your heart. All right. You getting the gravity of this? You understand this story? It's like heavy. It's super heavy. It's super heavy, and what do you do with this? Because I'm not the only one that's dealt with heavy stuff and heavy things to forgive. And in some cases, I would say the forgiveness journey is not complete. But I find it interesting that the invitation here is to be on a journey and is not described here or in the Lord's Prayer as like an instant done. Instant forgive. Yes, instantly no, you are expected to be on. Yes, sir? Did you do it? Okay, so did you cut it right there?
Yeah, 601.
601. All right, so I still need you guys to stick up here. Nicely done. I'll let that roll, but I want you guys to hold either end of it, okay? All right. Okay, yeah, I bounced right over you there. Okay, carry it down to the end. There you go. Just stretch it out so everybody sees that. All right. All right, and you can hardly even go the whole distance, can you? But what happened to the scissors? Who's got the scissors? Oh, down here. All right. All right, now we can't even get this as far across the stage as we would want to. But the reason I said 601 is I already gave you the ratio, right? I said it's a 600,000 to 1 ratio. So if you imagine that this would be the sin of a person's life, and it's all the stuff that Jesus forgave and forgives. Hang on to it, bud. Yeah, that's all right. Beautiful. And here's what we're going to do. Now you hold it right there for me. Yeah. See, and that's all the sin that the person accumulated toward God. And then this is how much God's asking us to forgive. Oops. Not this much. That much. 1,000th of 1 centimeter. All right. Nicely done, men. You can drop that. All right. So I clued on this earlier, but I want to talk just a moment about forgiveness, reconciliation, and trust. Is that the next slide that I've got? There it is. Now, they're all part of the macro opportunity. And guess what? In the eternal kingdom, in the new creation, all these things happen. Okay. But here's what I'm going to tell you. It's the forgiveness issue that is an expectation as believers. Forgiven people will forgive. Okay. Now, is that the same as reconciliation? Like you got to go hanging out? What if the person you're forgiving today has been dead for a long time? Or what if it is impossible or it is not safe? Be careful how people can spiritually abuse one another. Go sit on Papa's lap. Go sit on. Go out for ice cream go out. Yeah. You just understand how that could happen. No, don't do that. Don't do that. In some cases, forgiveness and reconciliation both start to happen. And good, but it's not a requirement from what I can tell. It's not a requirement that you got to hang out with who's hurt you. Right. Just be on a forgiveness journey and know that you don't know everything about this other person and their own pain and how they got into this and what happened and some of that stuff. And you just have to say, well, this makes no sense to me right now. Yeah. All right. Trust, that's a whole other deal. And I can put people in my life where I would say, yes, forgiveness and reconciliation. They would say the same, by the way, have gotten to Tom with stuff. But there's some that, people that I really like, but I don't trust them. Would I want to go to a Packers game with them? It'd be a hoot. People like, yeah, meet up for a drink, tell some stories. Absolutely. But, hey, by the way, I got an investment that I'd like you to, no. And I literally did say to somebody last week, no, the reason I'm not giving you the information you're looking for is because I just don't trust you to hold it, right? And that's just the whole point, right? The forgive and forgive, knowing that there's more to the story than the pain that they felt. So there's going to be some degree of openness and some degree of holding it loosely. This makes no sense to me right now. All right, here's some things to ponder as we wrap up. And I'm going to give you a few minutes on this, and then our elders are going to come and lead us in a moment of communion. Communion times, they'll say it even better than I can, are often good reflective times. Forgiven people are forgivers. Here's some ponders. Where do I need to go to the source? Or where do I need to apologize for not having gone to the source? Whose debt am I holding on to? Life is hard. Life is hard. Have I forgotten the weight of what I've been forgiven? And, what's next? What's next for you? To journal this out. Ritual. I can tell you about some really important ways you can bring ritual into your life and leave some things behind. Seeing people who know a lot more about this emotional journey than we lay people do. I don't know what's next, but ponder this. And then the elders will be coming to lead us in communion. Okay.
Go ahead, take a few minutes to just reflect on those questions, to talk to one another, to listen in, to ask the Lord to speak to you about maybe something you need to forgive. Let him speak.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Parker King. I'm one of the elders here at Frontline, and I'll be leading us in communion this morning. Communion has very strong ties to what Tom taught us about this morning. Jesus told a story about a servant who was forgiven an unpayable debt, but then refused to forgive another. And that story points us to the cross, where Jesus paid the debt we couldn't pay. Communion is where we remember that payment, that forgiveness. The body of Jesus was broken. His blood was poured out, not because we deserved it, but because he is rich in mercy and grace. Partaking in communion is a reminder of the grace we've received and a call to extend that same grace to others. It's not easy often, but that's what we're called to do. At our church, any follower of Jesus is welcome to partake in communion. But if you're not a Christian and if you've not put your trust in Christ, we just ask that you simply observe this moment. This is a sacred act of worship for those who follow him that was instituted by Jesus himself. In a moment, I'll invite you to get up and move to one of the communion stations. They're throughout the room, a couple at the front, a couple at the back. And take the bread and the cup back to your seat, and then we'll all partake together after we read some scripture. So I'd ask you just, if we could put the questions back up real quick, just take a moment now to continue to reflect on the forgiveness that we've received. And then here in a few seconds, I'll invite you to go retrieve the elements from one of the stations. Go ahead and stand and retrieve the elements.